Welcome to the Elk Talk Podcast with Randy Newberg and Corey Jacobson. Presented by the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation.
The goal is, what little you and I know about elk hunting, we share with people.
I've got an elk bugle, it's like 120 yards away. What do I do? First off, the thought would never cross my mind when an elk's bugle 120 yards away to call anybody on a cell phone.
All elk?
All the time? Only elk?
Only elk.
Well, it's us having conversations, so we usually go down some rabbit holes, but
If you hunt with Corey Jacobson, you will find the landscape is full of rabbit holes. We're just going to make this up as we go.
and you look at it like, oh, that's a target-rich environment. But if you're trying to single one out, a solo target there is much easier to go into than a big group.
We record everything, so there's no BSing, no lying, no faking it with us.
Did we hit the record
I
button?
thought I forgot to hit the record button. If you want to know something about elk hunting, this probably isn't the podcast to listen to. Should we give them a list of all the other podcasts where they might learn something? The Elk Talk Podcast is brought to you by the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, ensuring the future of elk, other wildlife, their habitat, and our hunting heritage. To become a member, go to rmef.org.
The Elk Talk Podcast is also brought to you by Mountain Ops, making outdoor energy and performance nutrition to make you a stronger and healthier elk hunter. They have a full line of hunting-related supplements, including meal replacement shakes, multivitamins, pre-workout fuel, and post-workout recovery. And my favorite, their new performance protein bars that, by the way, are packed with 270 calories and 20 grams of protein, but contain less than 6 grams of sugar. Visit mountainops.com to learn more and to order, and be sure to use the promo code ELKTALK to save on your next order.
The podcast is also brought to you by Gerber. Go to gerbergear.com and learn about the knives, the Vital, the Big Game Vital, the Gator Premium, all the things that we use when we're out in the woods, and not just knives, but also some really cool multi-tools that they have.
And we have a promo code for Gerber as well. Just use the code ELKTALK to save 20% on your orders at gerbergear.com. And we are also brought to you by Rocky Mountain Hunting Calls. And Rocky Mountain Hunting Calls is the original designer and inventor of the pallet plate diaphragm that's completely changed the way elk calls are made and used. And to find out more and to order your elk calls, go to RockyMountainHuntingCalls.com or buglingbull.com and use promo code ELKTALK, and you're going to save 15% on all of your elk calls and elk call accessories.
The Elk Talk Podcast is also brought to you by GoHunt.com. Go to GoHunt.com and sign up for the Insider. The Insider is changing how hunts and hunting information are found. No doubt about that. Use promo code ELKTALK, and when you sign up for the Insider, you're going to get $50 of store credit, mad money, in their gear shop.
Lastly, the University of Elk Hunting online course is a proud partner of the Elk Talk Podcast. And within the University of Elk Hunting online course, you're going to find nearly 60 chapters organized in 17 modules of elk hunting instruction aimed at making you a more successful elk hunter. From planning and e-scouting to calling strategies and packing, every imaginable elk hunting topic is included in the online course. And regardless of your previous elk hunting experience or success, I'm confident the University of Elk Hunting online course will make you a more confident, more successful elk hunter. Just visit elk101.com and use the promo code ELKTALK to save 20% when you sign up for a membership to the University of Elk Hunting online course.
And with that, Corey, we are ready to get into it.
Let's jump into it.
Hey, Corey, how you doing?
I am great. How are you doing?
I'm good, but I'm late. I'm sorry about that. I really feel bad because we have such a wonderful guest with us today, and I showed up 10 minutes late.
I know, but at your age, that mid-morning nap's important. And
Oh, Trail, how you doing?
Good. Yeah, thanks for having me. I was just going to say you showed up fashionably late. You probably the most prepared of us, right?
No. Anyone wondering, Trail Kreitzer from GOHUNT is on the other line with us, and he's going to tell us everything we need to know about elk hunting specifically elk hunting in Utah, right? You're going to tell us that we should all buy an over-the-counter tag and come there and inundate your state as elk hunters?
Yeah, why not? I mean, we don't need any recruitment, right? Back into the population for for big bulls, but
yeah. How many people you guys got in Utah these days?
More all the time. Yeah. It seems like they can't build fast enough. Everywhere around me, my whole entire neighborhood. When I moved here to Cedar City, it's been 12 years ago. I think there were probably 4 or 5 houses on my street, and now there's only one empty lot, which is the one right next to me. I don't know what that says about me, but it's the only empty lot in the neighborhood.
Well, you need to join Corey up in Idaho then.
No, we're doing just fine. No, I'm okay if Trail joins us, but we don't need more of a migration.
No? Corey, you're the fastest growing of all western states in Idaho.
I know.
I mean, isn't that a trophy that you want to brag about?
No, I heard Boise was the fastest growing city. Also, Boise is the most overpriced market in the nation. So
really?
that should be enough to deter most people.
Huh. I would say whoever did that survey must have somehow flown over Bozeman and didn't look at the data here. But oh well. But they need to come up with a movie series not titled Yellowstone, but titled, I don't know, what would be a geographic term to get everybody to come to southern Utah? Trail? What would they call it? Zion. There we go.
Yeah, we've got Zion. It's funny you mentioned that. I saw somebody's social media post the other day. I had some friends that had, they were from California that had come out to see Zion, and he posted some pictures on Instagram. And I'm not sure at this point why you'd want to go. I mean, it looked like Black Friday at a shopping mall. I mean, there were people absolutely everywhere.
Well, we're not painting a very pretty picture for these 3 states. And you know what the audience is going to say? The audiences think we're specifically saying this to keep everybody away.
Totally. And they might not be wrong, but
yeah. Idaho guys are the worst. Though I've never talked to an Idaho person or done a live event when the Idaho person said anything other than nothing to see here, move along, nothing to see here. Wolves ate them all, but whatever. You guys in Idaho really do. You guys go above and beyond the Call of Duty, Corey, to try deter people.
Well, I mean, there's so many positive aspects to other areas that it's really easy to divert people there. When you realize that Bozeman has more 400-inch bulls right out of town than any other city anywhere. I mean, it's pretty easy to tell people, hey, if you want quality elk hunting, go to Bozeman. If you want, good winters, go to Nevada. Central Nevada is beautiful in the winter. So there's just a lot of positive aspects to other areas. I don't see what people see about Idaho. Idaho's, there's not really anything great here.
Yeah, well, Trail, did you draw an elk, deer, or antelope tag in Idaho this year?
I did not. I bought one. So when the December 1st, opener, when you can buy those over-the-counter licenses for non-residents, I bought an over-the-counter tag, elk and deer. Which I won't end up using because I just don't have the time. But yeah, I do have one.
How did you get that far to the front of the line? I was number 14,000 something.
I think I was number 11,000. I got like my 3rd or 4th choice, I think. So it wasn't like, the area that I wanted, and I kind of went down the line, but it was an area that I'd hunted back when I was going to Utah State. I jumped over there to Idaho, so I had a little familiarity with it. But I still got one.
Corey, where were you in the line? I mean, as a resident, that must have been a pretty long line, right?
Yeah, it was incredible. I actually haven't got my tag yet because we can just walk in. We can just walk into the Walmart anytime and get them. So I guess there is a positive to being a resident in Idaho, but it's starting to become that way in just about every state. I just updated the University of Elk Hunting and kind of the overview of each of the states, and I had to really update. I had to update the list of over-the-counter opportunities, and they're dwindling.
Really?
I mean, they really are, especially for a non-resident. You've got, Colorado is really the only platform that's a true over-the-counter for a non-resident. Idaho, they still call it over-the-counter, but it's a lottery. No matter how you look at it, you have to get in line and get a number, and then you have to wait till your number's called to get it. It's no different than a draw. You mentioned Utah. Utah's got over-the-counter, but even Utah residents don't want to promote it, and anybody who's hunted there probably would agree with them. So, you've got Oregon with a little bit of over-the-counter opportunity that dwindled significantly this year, and then a little bit in Washington. But, man, outside of that, for non-residents, it's pretty slim pickings.
Yeah. Trail, how does your over-the-counter hunting process or tag application process work in Utah? Is it true over-the-counter?
Yeah. I mean, there's a cap depending on the weapon. So if you want to rifle hunt or muzzleloader hunt, there's a cap, and so you still have to buy that on the first day that they go on sale. It used to be that you could buy those. I mean, you could buy them clear up into, just before the hunt started, to be honest, and there would still be some permits and opportunities there, but that seems to have dwindled also. It seems like if you're going to buy one, especially, like I said, for that rifle or muzzleloader, you've got to jump on it within that first day, I would say, if they go on sale. But, archery is still unlimited. So if you want to bow hunt, you can buy just the archery over the counter, and you can buy it online. You can buy it at a sporting goods store in Utah. So we do still have that option. It's like Corey said. I mean, it could be pretty rough. I mean, we have the spike hunt, which is spike only on the limited entry bull units, and during the archery hunt, which is becoming more popular, people can pick up a bow and go hunting. And like I said, those are unlimited. It can really crowd out some of those limited entry units, especially for guys that have drawn permits. It can be pretty tough, but then success rates are generally pretty low. But if you just want a chance to get out and go, it still exists.
Well, you're the one who writes a lot of strategy articles for GOHUNT. What's next year's strategy article going to look like to go elk hunting every year?
Yeah, I say start with Idaho. We talked about it not being a true over-the-counter option anymore, and that's true. It used to be a backup option, but it's not necessarily the case anymore. You do have to get in line, if you will, and those go on sale December 1st. So right out of the gate every year in December, a lot of people, it seems like, aren't really necessarily thinking about the following fall in December. They've still got the holidays coming, so maybe it's not really on their radar, but my process is to try to pick up that over-the-counter Idaho tag December 1st and kind of use that as a backup, if you will. So I've got that permit in pocket if nothing else comes through. And then Colorado, you mentioned it. It really is the only, besides maybe some opportunities in Oregon, but it really is the best at this point, true over-the-counter option. So, if I didn't get Idaho December 1st and I didn't draw any permits, it would be Colorado would be my next option for OTC. And then, Utah, I grew up I cut my teeth in elk hunting on spike hunts, and, there's a lot of arguments for and against spike hunting. I mean, I hear a lot of people say that, spike hunting is kind of detrimental to, our herds, and they use that as a means to control the overall, bull to cow ratios, while still giving, people that draw those limited entry permits an opportunity to hunt big bulls. but it still is an opportunity. I grew up hunting that, and I've got a lot of fond memories of hunting spike elk on limited entry units and seeing some really nice bulls. Getting a chance to watch them and then harvesting spikes. So that still is an option.
Would you, if you had to choose between doing your spike hunt in Utah or over the counter in Colorado, which would you do?
I would do over the counter in Colorado. They're yeah, I think it's a better hunt. I mean, the spike hunts, I think harvest success for, a rifle spike tag in Utah is about 20%. And spikes eat real well. They're tasty, but, I would rather go to Colorado and have a chance to hunt a branch antlered bull. And, I hear a lot of people say that, over the counter in Colorado is really blown out and it's not a good hunt. In saying that, I've hunted second and third season, rifle, deer tags, and almost every one of those that I can remember, I could have also picked up an elk tag and have seen bulls and could have harvested decent bulls. I've hunted OTC archery hunts there and had good hunts. So I would say at this point I would rather hunt OTC in Colorado.
Well, Corey, what's your vote? Is he just trying to deflect everybody to go to Colorado?
No, I think the track record speaks for itself there. Colorado is still the destination for over the counter, and with it, with everywhere else becoming more limited, the writing's on the wall. Colorado's not going to be able to handle the load that's going to be placed on it, that's been placed on it, and it's going to continue to increase. So I think the days of over-the-counter elk hunting are probably dwindling rapidly, unfortunately.
Yeah, we are breeding ourselves out of habitat, if that's one way you want to look at it, or at least the amount of people moving to the western states just can't sustain the level of new residents. Say 10 or 15% of them hunt, and you increase your population, like in my state of Montana. Since I've moved here 30 years ago and I created some of the problem, our population has increased by over 300, I think almost 300,000. Well, if 10% of those people hunt, that's 30,000 more resident elk hunters walking around in the woods. That's a lot of extra pressure.
Yeah. Yeah, well, if you listen to anything on social media or some of the emails we get, they would blame it on Randy Newberg, Corey Jacobson, and GOHUNT. I mean, that's
yeah.
How do you answer that one?
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, I mean, I hear that, and there's some validity to that. I understand what people are saying. It does seem to be, there's more interest in Western big game hunting, and you look at the statistics and the number of applicants, and you do see it rising. In saying that, just because, a unit may switch from, over the counter to a draw system doesn't mean that you're necessarily losing all of your opportunity. I mean, I can think of several units still in Colorado, that switched over to a draw unit as of like the last 2 years that you could still draw, as a first choice with no points. In a lot of cases, you could draw those as a second choice. There are still easier opportunities to draw. You may have to switch up your application strategy article. You may not be able to bank on having those, simply over the counter. But, if you play your cards right, you play your application right, there's still opportunities to draw tags.
Yeah, wow, absolutely. No, and there's two sides of the coin, and I absolutely get it. There is no doubt that our platforms and our promotion of do-it-yourself public land hunting has increased, has contributed to that. But at the same time, we need that increase. We need more people that are, there's no doubt they're taking from the limited pool. But without those voices, we're going to lose that opportunity. I have no doubt. Just seeing, the political landscape and everything that's out there, if we don't have more advocates for public land, if we don't have more advocates for hunting in general, we're going to lose that opportunity a lot more rapidly. And so my goal has always been, it's not a commercial deal that I'm trying to capitalize or monetize or profit from it. I want more people in our corner, and I want to promote this in a way that increases those numbers to support what we like to do. And, Will Primos, when I was talking to him a few years back, said, when you teach somebody to love something, they're going to fight aggressively to protect what they love. And, my platform's always been share my passion and love for elk and elk hunting in the hopes that more people will get on board and help us protect that. And, there's definitely going to be some give and some take in that. And one of the things that we're going to have to do is realize, hey, there are more people coming into this. So like Randy always says, what do we need to do to build a bigger pie? It's not how do we limit people and shoot ourselves in the foot. It's how do we create a bigger team and at the same time maintain opportunity. And that needs to be, I think, what we're looking at here. And it scares me. As a resident of Idaho, we'll probably be one of the last states, maybe Wyoming will be ahead of us, but that will lose over-the-counter opportunity for residents. But like Randy says, there's 49 other states that we're non-residents in, and there's a lot of people that are not residents of a state that has elk hunting opportunities. And, I worry about them. I worry about 20, 30 years from now, what it's going to look like. And I think our best bet is not to cut the number of hunters in half and get rid of hunters. It's to find a way to increase the pie so that increasing numbers of hunters have opportunities.
That's pretty much summarizes my thoughts on it too, Corey. I know in Montana, we have a lot of forces at play that contribute to that. We love to blame non-residents. That's kind of a sport in Montana. You blame non-residents for everything. And maybe that's how it is in Utah and Idaho also. But really, our increases are coming in the resident numbers. The other challenge we face is we are losing access in Montana. And people say, well, how can that be? The Elk Foundation and Trust for Public Lands, they open up all this access. Well, where we're losing access is to, in our state that's 2/3 private, access to lands that hunters used to have access to that was private land. And because of, they had a relationship or they grew up in that area or whatever it might be, we have this huge trend in Montana of, I call it billionaires. It can be whoever, and I don't deprive anybody the credit for being successful. But there is a reality that comes with that we have a huge displacement of hunters from what was traditionally open private lands. We have hunt clubs popping up that are competing for some of our lands that were enrolled in block management, which is our public access program. And those hunters end up going somewhere. So the density of hunters on public land is increasing because of the access issue. Density, which I think is what a lot of people are feeling the friction on, is the amount of hunters that are out there per 100 acres or per 1,000 acres, however you want to measure it. And that has a numerator and a denominator. And the numerator is the number of hunters, but the denominator, if that's shrinking, i.e. accessible lands, that can have more impact than whatever increase people might be feeling due to new residents showing up here. So where are we going to focus? Are we going to focus our effort on the feeling of, hey, this is mine, I want to close the gate, I don't want anyone else here? Or are we going to focus on more access, more acreage available to hunt, and more species available? And I tend to focus on the denominator of access and herd numbers. And I know some people disagree with that, and that's fine. Right. I guess that's why we have platforms and why we have debates and discussions about this stuff. So,
well, I think the easier route is to shut the gate. That's definitely easiest. But I think the negative that comes with that, the potential downside of we're such a minority in this country, hunters and Western hunters and public land hunters, we're a tiny little fraction of the population, and tiny little fractions of population lose, when it comes to a vote. And we're just seeing everything going that way through political routes. And I mean, the writing's on the wall that if we don't have a stronger voice and a stronger representation, we can shut the gate and we can enjoy maybe another 5 or 10 years of what we have, but it will disappear completely if we do that. And, that's not conspiracy theory. That's just the writing's on the wall, and we're seeing it already in losing access in, wolves in Colorado, in losing baiting and hunting with hounds and all these things. It's a foothold that's going to continue to slide if we don't stand up for it. And I think that, it's painful. It's painful to go through this growth and to have more hunters come in. But when we go through that growth and we realize, hey, we can be a part of the solution rather than just sit here and complain and say non-resident hunters are the problem or the Fish and Game Department is the problem, find the solution. That's I think the message in all of this is there is a solution. We've just got to all work together to make it better for all of us. And we can be selfish and we can only look for ourselves for the next 5 or 10 years and it'll work out. But beyond that, it's not sustainable.
Yeah. Trail, were you living in Utah when you guys implemented a lot of these limited entry seasons for? Well, I know your general deer tag, even though it's called general, it's still a draw. And then you guys really changed the elk hunting seasons in a big way. Were you there when all of that was being proposed and kicked around? And I mean, if I understand correctly, it was a function of number of new people showing up or growth in population relative to the amount of resource available.
Yeah. I've lived here my whole life. So I was born and raised here, and I remember it's been interesting. So like my dad, he moved out here to start hunting. He loved the Intermountain West and ended up in Utah because he wanted to pursue Western big game hunting. And I remember him hunting when I was a kid. He would take 10 days every year, and he would go elk hunting. And at that point, he could just get a permit and go. But I remember him coming home and like if he saw an elk, it was amazing. I remember my brother killed a bull. I was probably 10 or so, and he was in high school. But I remember he killed a 5x5, and it was a huge deal. I remember there just weren't that many elk. You just didn't see that many elk. And then it's kind of like you're saying, we grew the population. They kind of put emphasis and management strategies in place to kind of grow those herds. And I've kind of seen this progression of the number of elk in the state increasing in my lifetime, and then kind of going to that limited entry process and kind of trying to manage, give people the opportunity to hunt, big mature bulls, and then still also try to provide some opportunity for people. When I was a kid, I used to be able to just buy I think I was 16 or 17 was the last year I could just buy an over-the-counter deer tag in Utah. And then, I've seen that go to a draw, and you used to be able to draw the general season deer tag for a region, and then they went to unit by unit. And, at this point, it's pretty tough to get a general season deer tag. You're probably 2 or 3 years, in points trying to draw a general season deer tag. So I've kind of seen the progression of both. It's been interesting, going back to what you guys are talking about as far as, the number of new hunters. I have a couple thoughts. One of them is I think new hunters are a great thing. I think the more new hunters, the better. we've got to have hunters to kind of carry on the tradition. You know, the way the world's kind of headed, we've got to have representation. We have to have people to pass this tradition on to. And the other thing is, it might just be like me getting older, but I know what hunting has been and meant to me in my lifetime. I know those experiences, like those pivotal moments that I've experienced in the woods, and how much that means to me. I mean, when you look back on your life, you know, those moments, they meant so much to me, and I value them so highly. You know, it would really be selfish of me to not also want more people to also have those types of experiences, which for me have been, you know, impactful. They've been major pivotal points in my life. So I don't know if it's maybe I'm maturing, I'm just getting old, but like I would like to have, you know, more people to also have that opportunity to have those types of experiences. So, you know, more hunters, sure. Does it mean less tags for me? Probably. But at the same time, you know, I want to see this heritage passed on. I want to see my kids, you know, still have an opportunity to hunt. You know, I want more people to have those types of experiences.
You're going to get a second to that motion from me. Because I'm older than both of you. And I will say that I think age does have something to do with that, Trail. I think also having kids has something to do with that. Kind of the pivot point in my life was when my son was born. For me, it was all of a sudden these things, advocacy, public lands, access, conservation. It was all about what's going to be there for him. It was no longer about me. Yeah, I'd have my chances and my opportunities, but that's really where I saw my view of this going from what's right down in front of my feet to what's up on the horizon and what's even over the horizon. And I've like you, I've been blessed, man. I've had the opportunity to live in a place, and my whole life, even before I moved to Montana, was all about hunting and fishing. And you know, I've come to this place now for over 30 years, and it's just been a remarkable opportunity. And I don't want to see it go away. I don't want to see it become just the exclusive opportunity of someone who's got a huge checkbook, because I can tell you, when I moved here, if I would have told my wife, "Hey, darling, you know, I need $1,000 or I need $150 to go elk hunting this year." In 1991, she probably would have said, "A divorce might be cheaper, pal." So I get the feeling that people have, right? We've all pulled up to a trailhead and there's 2 more vehicles than there were last year. And we kind of grumble a little bit. But you know what? That, to me, that's just saying, hey, what are we doing to make sure there's more places for people to go? Because if we don't work on access next year, instead of 2 new trucks, there's going to be 5 new trucks. And so I know that's going to, as long as the economy is robust and we see these booms and you know, these ebbs and flows and interest in non-resident hunting, we're going to have this feeling. But I've lived through enough of these cycles to know that the absolute core of it is the habitat and the access, because habitat never gets reclaimed from subdivisions back to habitat. Once it's gone, it's gone. And very seldom do properties get locked up or gates closed or, you know, access to the public land back behind the property. Very seldom does that get reopened once it gets closed. So there's an awful lot of important work that we got to do. And I'm not going to let the detraction take my eye off those important things that are critical to elk hunters and elk hunting. So,
and I just think if people saw what really went on behind the scenes, what goes on behind the scenes day to day politically in the hunting landscape, they would probably have a different perspective, I guess, of how we're walking a fine line and how easy it could be to lose what we have politically. And, it just, you and I see it. How many years ago do we have to go back when there was no such thing as an advocate for hunting in politics? We were 100% defensive. It was all on the defense. When somebody brought something, we had to rally the troops and get people to go and put enough voice to stop something rather than being proactive and going and implementing things to protect what we have. And that's a direct result of bringing more people to hunting. You couldn't do that. I mean, it's financially, it's just impossible to do. So having more voices contributes to being proactive. Having more voices contributes to having more soldiers on the ground that are hopefully working to not only protect, but to establish the things we've talked about, the access, the opportunities, and hopefully more animals, more blueberries in the pie.
Yeah. Hey, Trail, could I switch subjects?
Yeah.
Got a question for you. I ran into you at a trailhead here in Montana last year. You were one of those vehicles I was cussing. Did you get an elk?
We did not. We talked to you, and we actually had spent a few days kind of in that area where we ran into you and hadn't seen much. Hadn't seen a ton of sign, and we had another area that we just wanted to check out. Part of that hunt, I think for me was just getting to see, new country and getting to kind of explore and do some hunting in some new areas. So we moved areas and we saw a lot of elk, saw tons of cows and calves. We saw a few bulls, just didn't put ourselves into a position to get one, but had a fun hunt nonetheless. And then, Montana, we had that big game combo. So I also had the deer tag, and, we relocated a few hours to the east and had a great hunt. Yeah, I killed an old buck, big 3-point, probably one of the oldest bucks I've ever killed. I mean, he didn't have a lot for headgear, but just a giant body and just almost no teeth. So that was a cool hunt.
Yeah. The reason I ask you that is 2 years prior, Corey had the Montana tag, and he said, "You got any ideas of where I should go?" I'm like, "Yeah." I sent him to the same place, and he saw the same number of elk you did.
Trail, next time Randy gives you advice on where to go elk hunting, call me, because there's a good chance he's already sent me there, and I can save you the effort.
Yeah. Here's what we figured. So we saw goats, right? So we got up in there and we saw some mountain goats. We saw Big Billy the first day, and then the second day we went into another area and saw some goats, and then hiked out. We ran into Randy, and I said, "Hey, Randy, we've not seen many elk, but we've seen some nice billies." And he's like, "Well, I got a goat tag."
Randy is letting us do his scouting for him.
Yeah, I think Corey saw some mountain goats in there too when he had that. When he was in there,
absolutely did. And then coincidentally, you started putting in for that unit right about then, and so we scouted it for you, got you to put in for the unit, and then Trail went in there while you had the tag to get you on the ground intel. I see the method here. I can't fault you. It's a brilliant method. I just wish I wasn't on the receiving end of the stick.
Yeah, well, when you ask somebody questions, you got to be a little more precise, because I think, Corey, you asked me, have you killed any elk in here? I said, yeah, I've killed 5 bulls in there. But you didn't ask how long ago that was. I haven't killed a bull in there since 2003.
Well, I knew something was up when Randy didn't. He was supposed to be hunting with us, and he didn't show up at camp. And after 3 days, he finally said, "Well, we're actually over on the other side of the state hunting. You can come join us if you want. We're seeing a ton of elk." And so we did. We picked up and went over to where he was, and we were covered in elk. So,
well, Really, folks, that was not. I was trying to be helpful in all this. They said they wanted to see some new country where there wouldn't be a lot of other hunters. Did you guys see lots of hunters in there?
No.
We didn't see any other real hunters. We saw one other pickup truck. I will say that when we got up in there, I was telling Chris Neville that I was with at the time. I said, I don't know if this would be my first choice because it's steep. I mean, that is some steep country. But I thought, if there are some elk in here and there is a bull, there's probably a pretty good one up in here. And we did see some elk. We saw some cows and calves, but I did think that if there was some bulls, that there was a chance for something pretty nice. So I can't fault you too much, and I was more than happy to turn any information over to you that we had for goat. So I was glad you got a good one.
Yeah. Well, now the audience is like, oh, if I ask Newberg a question and he answers it with some other questions, he's probably pumping me.
Maybe the requests that we get for unit-specific information will go down drastically now that they know the truth, that if we were to answer it, that's what would really happen.
Well, that's part of the motivation there.
I just thought maybe I would be a step higher on the ladder than somebody that you don't know, but I guess hunting information is sacred.
I treat all my friends the same. You guys can compare notes and say, man, he's equal opportunity.
That's true.
But, I'm going back in there this fall. It's already on the schedule, but I'm going back in there. I don't have a goat tag, but I'm just going back in there for nostalgia purposes. There's one rock that's really a good rock to sleep on. It faces south, and it's got this perfect pitch to it. You'll be asleep in 12 minutes when the sun hits you. So
I fell asleep multiple times. I fell asleep multiple times when we were in there. It was from a lack of oxygen. Wake up with Donnie and John shaking me, saying, "Corey, you okay? Your face turned blue and you fell asleep there."
Oh, these guys are making this up. It's not that bad, folks. But so it gets me to the point of Trail. You work at GoHunt. I can't imagine how many questions you get. Brady probably gets, all of you get, about people who drew a tag and then they got a ton of questions. Do you guys end up fielding a ton of questions related to that stuff? Where should I go? Hey, I've never been to this unit. Do you guys become kind of like quasi-biologists after tags are issued?
Yeah, we do. We get a ton. I know, through via email and then, just also through social media and those kinds of things, we get tons and tons of questions. And, I try to help as much as I possibly can. I mean, it depends a little bit on the tag they have. I mean, I've got a Utah elk tag this year, and I was talking earlier to Corey, and, there's a pretty good likelihood that I won't be able to have another elk tag in Utah till I'm almost, 60. So if someone draws a Utah elk tag and I've got some intel, I'm more than happy to help them out. And, I'll get real specific. I'll tell them the exact areas where I would look and, glassing points and all kinds of information. If it's, more of a general type of area, OTC stuff, I kind of try to help them and put them in the right area based on just kind of what I think, elk need or deer need. I would look here based on, the type of hunt that you've got. It's got the type of vegetation, it's got the slope and the aspect that I would kind of focus on during your tag. But we do get a ton of questions, tons and tons.
Yeah. Well, you could play the dirty Newberg trick and send everybody to the same trailhead where there aren't any elk. Isn't that what biologists are trained to do? Send everybody to the same trailhead.
Yeah. I will say that, people have been incredibly helpful and very giving also. I drew this elk tag in Utah. I've drawn some tags in New Mexico. And I've talked a little bit about the tags that I've drawn on, other podcasts or, via our content. I've been really surprised at the amount of people that have, reached out and said, hey, let me know if you want some ideas. And so it's been super cool to see. I tell my kids all the time, I kind of believe in karma. You get back what you put out. And so I try to help people as much as I can in hopes that, when I draw a tag, it'll come back around.
Well, I try to do the same thing, but I would say I'm pretty generic with most, most pieces of information. Corey, he'll give you waypoints right down to the stump to sit on. But,
well, like Trail said. Yeah.
I just wanted to see how many emails you get.
I was
Corey,
just going to say, let me give you my email address here. It's Randy at.
No, I think as we hear things about, people crowding and competition for non-resident tags, the sharing of information and being a helpful person and using your example trail of karma, I think there's pressure against doing that, which again, I don't let that change my ideas of wanting to help people either. I mean, I'm not going to give you exact GPS coordinates, but I'm like you. I'll give people some general ideas or starting points, but you still got to go out there, learn it, earn it, and work at it.
And that's the thing. I don't know how many times that I've given people information, like the best information I've got for an area, and then followed up with them, and maybe they haven't had the type of hunt that I would have thought they had based on the information they had. And there's so much, subjectivity in the way people hunt, when they hunt, how hard they hunt, the level of effort. I mean, there's a lot of times I think you can give people, the world, and they may not be able to capitalize on it the way that you do or I do because, I may hunt it differently. So I think it's interesting on, Brady gets mad at me. Brady always makes fun of me because he always thinks I talk too much and tell people too much information. I mean, he doesn't tell anybody anything. I mean, he's just a clamshell. I mean, he won't tell anybody. He hates even the thought of telling people what state he's hunting in. So he really clams up. He's probably the opposite end of the spectrum from me. But I think I've grown less protective, I guess, of my spots or my areas because I just think there's so much variability above and beyond just a spot.
Yeah. How do you approach that, Corey?
Too many people put too much emphasis on a spot. And, when I have a spot in mind, I usually go down the list, get to number 6 or number 7 before I actually find what I'm looking for. So spots, and we've talked before, Randy, that's really what you and I do is give people the information, the resources, the tools they need to find their own spots. And I think that's so much more valuable than just giving somebody a spot because there's just so much variability there that spots just, they usually don't work out like we hope they will. So I think it's far more important. And, again, it comes down to, would it be easier for me to send somebody a waypoint and say, go here, there's guaranteed to be elk here. I shot an elk here last year. I've been scouting and seen elk there. Yeah, it'd be easy. But that's a one-time hit and gone. That spot isn't like it's magic or anything. Areas, I think, are sacred and important, but as far as a specific spot, there's just too much there, and I think there's far more reward that goes into finding your own spot, and part of that is finding a spot that's away from where everybody else is looking.
Yeah, I can give you kind of an interesting, as you were talking, I can give you at least interesting to me, an example. My biggest buck I ever killed was a muzzleloader buck here in Utah, and I shot that buck. And since then, I've had a number of people, come up and say, "Hey, I know exactly, where you killed that buck," or I've had a bunch of people tell me, ask me where where I killed that buck. And, I could tell them, I killed that buck, or the guy that comes up to tell me, hey, I know where you killed it. I could confirm it and say, yeah, that's where I killed it. But if I gave you the backstory of that, I mean, you would know that there were, I hunted him for 17 days and there were 5 and 6 day windows where I maybe saw 2 deer total, and it's like, I can give you everything, but maybe, that deer's dead, and if you're not willing to be in there and grind that out, it wouldn't matter if I told you where it was at anyway. So, I think spots are an interesting topic. I think, when you're talking about elk hunting, there's probably some validity there to, asking people spots, but you still got to figure it on your own.
I was just thinking about Corey talking about, this spot or that spot. And if Corey gave somebody a spot who is not an aggressive elk hunter, they might go into that exact same spot and not see or hear an elk, whereas somebody who hunts aggressively like Corey, he might encounter many elk. Or the flip might be otherwise, where there might be some places that are just better suited for a more passive approach, and somebody with a different hunting style might go in there and sneak around and see an elk or hear elk, and Corey might go in there and he's like, I ain't hearing or seeing anything, just because of our different hunting styles. I always tell people, pick the places that fit your hunting style, as much as the worrying about, is it the perfect place? There's lots of perfect places for your hunting style. Your job is to find where those places are. So, everybody wants a shortcut, myself included.
We had Remy in the office last week when I was down there in Vegas, and we were talking with him, and something that he said, it was kind of resonated with me, was I think everybody needs to hunt to their styles, hunt to your strengths. And some people are, Corey's a great caller, I'm a terrible caller, right? I just I don't put a ton of effort into it. And growing up in Utah, where our elk hunt is early, you've got the archery hunt in August and very early September. I mean, calling elk for me growing up, even on those spike hunts, wasn't really a part of our repertoire. We did a lot of spot and stalk and, sitting water and wallows and that kind of thing. So I just didn't really ever develop those skills. But, I am super patient. I can sit water holes. I can, get out ahead of a herd and, spot and stalk. I can do those types of things. So I think, I would say play to, think about what you're good at and play to your strengths and hunt those areas that are more applicable to your style of hunting. And then, talking to Remy, I mean, nothing's more fun than being successful, right? So if you call in an elk and you shoot it and that's how you're successful, then that's awesome, but if you can, spot and stalk and kill an elk, same success, nothing better than that. So play to your strengths and hunt areas that, kind of yield themselves to your strengths.
Corey?
Couldn't agree more.
You there? Okay. You're being kind of quiet in all this. I'm thinking, all right, is Corey feeling he's going to rat out some of his techniques and some of his ideas?
I think, gosh, when we talk about spots and elk hunting areas, especially public land, over-the-counter type stuff, they are sacred. And so, I get the people that are like completely hush-hush, and I think I'm the same way. I don't even mention units or zones or even areas when people are asking about that. You get into draw hunts, though, and I'm a little bit looser with that information, but it's a fine line, and we've talked in the past about taking a hunting partner or somebody into an area and then they go back in there, and it just doesn't take much to overrun an area. So I am sensitive to both sides of that as we start talking about sharing of information. But again, like Trail said, it comes down to the areas that I hunt are conducive to the style of hunting I do. And, if somebody's not a caller, they're not going to have a very fun time in some of these areas. Even if they are a caller, they're not going to have a lot of fun. But it's just tough hunting, and it's steep and rugged. And then you go into, somebody at spot and stock. There's no value for me to even share with them where I hunt, because we don't even half the time carry binoculars, just because you can't see more than 100 yards in front of you at any point during the day. So it's just extra weight to carry. And so, yeah, I mean, I agree 100% with that.
Well, if you can't call like I can't, and you're half blind, so you can't see that well, you really are dependent upon everybody else. That's why I have such good hunters as camera guys. They're like, hey, Randy, what do you say we go over here? But the reason I'm giving my camera guys all these great plugs is I feel like they've been the brunt of too much of my humor, and I'm wondering if people think I'm serious when I'm like blaming them for everything and they break equipment. I'm really blessed to have some great camera guys. So there you heard it, folks. I am, and but can I switch gears?
Of course you can.
I want to talk to Trail about tech. How much e-scouting do you do, Trail?
I do a lot. I would say it's probably. I mean, when I say a lot, it's probably not in comparison a lot to maybe a guy like yourself or Brady or some of the other guys that really put a lot of time and effort into e-scouting. I would say I spend 15 to 20 minutes a day, most days, looking at roads and trails and, using, things like our land analysis tool to kind of look at slope and aspect and, making polygons and dropping waypoints for glassing points and things that look interesting. So I spend a fair amount of time, but I'm not the world's best e-scouter by any means. And I would say that's not necessarily my strength. I generally have kind of a plan in place, and then I would say I'm much better at kind of figuring it out once I get out there.
I'd spend a ton of time e-scouting because I'm probably on the other end of the spectrum of figuring out when I get out there. I just, I gotta have, this is the accountant. I gotta have like a checklist. Okay, morning 1, this is where I'm going to be. Morning 2, this is where I'm going to be. Afternoon 1, this is where I'm going to be. And then through a process of elimination, every day I get a little closer to where they might be, because for every day that I didn't see one, well, now I can cross that area off. And I know some people think I'm kind of being facetious when I say it that way, but really I'm not. I have a method of doing it that way and following my e-scouting plan. And I feel every day a little more confident that, all right, I've crossed off, 3 afternoon spots and 4 morning spots. Only got 3 spots left. I know one of these 3 spots is going to be it. And so I wake up and I'm like, let's go. Today's the day. Maybe that's just me trying to trick myself into thinking that, but, for me, it is that methodical, and I'm sure some people think, well, that guy's really bored, man. He's got nothing else to do with his time. But I do spend a ton of time scouting for every hunt.
Yeah, I think guys in the office will make fun of me. I've heard Brady make fun of me. He'll take pokes at me and say things like, well, yeah, you go hunting with Trail, he might have a couple of waypoints dropped on a map. And in some cases, he's not wrong. Maybe I do have just a trailhead or 2 trailheads, marked, and maybe a couple glassing points. But I think and I don't know why. I'm not methodical in the sense that I've got, hard, fast plans for, day 1, day 2, day 3, or, morning and evening. I'd probably be more effective if I did. I think I'm much more, I get out there on the landscape and kind of start to observe and see what's going on, what the habitat really looks like. I guess maybe I'm not that good at looking at maps and taking that into the field and feeling like I have a perfect, or a really good idea of what that landscape looked like. But once I get out there, I'm much more confident that I can figure it out. And so I do spend a ton of time, like when I'm out in the field, looking at my phone and my app on my phone and examining landscapes in and around where I'm at and, in relation to where I'm at and what I can see. And then dropping waypoints, dropping, navigation, access points. And I would say I probably do more of that when I'm out in the field than I actually do even before I leave.
That's interesting. I don't know that I'm that adaptable and dynamic. And then you could be like Corey, where you're just like, well, these 30 square miles, I can hike that in a day and call. And if there's an elk there, I'll find him. Trail, if Corey invites you to go on an elk hunt, just make sure you get your track shoes with. That's the best advice I can get.
We do part of the strategy, and like Trail said, you can plan.
What do you do, Corey?
What do I do to find elk? I e-scout, and I find areas.
No, I mean, what do you do as far as e-scouting? Do you put a lot of emphasis into e-scouting? Do you spend a lot of time? Do you feel like that your hunt plan is based around, your e-scouting, or do you feel like it's kind of a 50-50 deal, or do you kind of heavily skew it one way or the other?
I do spend a lot of time e-scouting. I like to, and the benefit, I think, of e-scouting, not necessarily just to find spots to look at, but to become more familiar with the area, especially an area I've not been to. Colorado, for instance, going on that hunt this year, I've never stepped foot in that unit. And so I've been doing a ton of e-scouting. I'm going to continue to do a bunch more. So I just feel like when I get to an intersection, I know where that road goes. I know which cutoff I need to take to get back into the area I want to get to. And, just really learn that area through e-scouting. In addition, you can find, those spots that stand out. That's like, oh, look at that drainage back in there. That looks really good. It's hard to access. There's some good north-facing stuff. So I definitely do a lot of e-scouting. But I also know that I'm going to have to cover a lot of ground, and really the best scouting that I can do is the first day I'm there during hunting season with my bow and my bugle tube in hand. I'm looking for a bugle, and that's really how I pinpoint the area. I find a bull that's responding, and then I go hunt him. So kind of a mix of the two, really. I do see a lot of value in e-scouting, but I also don't put a lot of value in my e-scouting leading me right to an elk that's standing there that I want to shoot. It gets me into the general area, and then from there, it's boots on the ground during season looking for an elk to hunt that moment.
Do you think the difference in approach is the type of seasons? Like Corey, you hunt a lot of archery seasons, which would be pre-rut, peak rut. And for me, when I'm e-scouting for those, not that I'm, anything of that kind of archery hunter, but I'm looking for more general areas that I can get there and do a lot of hiking and moving and calling. Whereas, most of my elk hunts, I end up in a late season, maybe a post rut, and those are mostly glassing hunts and less calling. And so I look at my own hunts or my own e-scouting plans, and when I'm doing it for archery season, I'm more of a generalist. When I'm doing it for rifle seasons, I'm really specific, and I end up sitting on my butt on a rock glassing for hours and hours. So I wonder if it's less about hunting style as it is as much about the type of seasons, and just each season, there's a different type of or a different approach to each season that is going to make it more effective.
I would definitely agree with that.
I agree. Yeah, I agree as well. I think you get into those later season hunts where your primary method is finding your glassing points, finding the areas where the elk are likely to be in. And at that point, access, finding your, the best way up to your glassing point is super important. And finding those glassing points that can offer you, glassing into those remote little pockets that, bulls are likely to be in during, a late season hunt becomes super important. But I think you're right. I do less of it, I guess I would say, for like an early season archery elk hunt. And I think you're right. I'm looking for the same types of things. I'm looking at general areas versus like a glassing point, a access route. And then those late season hunts, I agree, it becomes that much more important.
Well, maybe I'm not completely out to lunch then. I mean, I did show up 10 minutes late, so, anything I say today, everybody should take with a grain of salt. But, so Trail, you guys have the new mapping, well, it's not new maps, but it's a new level of service called Explorer, and I've been using the heck out of it, of all your maps, because the new terrain analysis tool, when you're doing something as precise as these late season or post-rut e-scouting plans, for me, that terrain analysis tool makes it so easy for me to accomplish my goal. And that goal is eliminate where they aren't and focus where they are. Corey and I have talked about it in the past. What's been the response to people who've been using your terrain analysis tool?
Yeah, it's been really good. We're still trying to get the word out to let people kind of fully understand what is available to them with that tool. I've got mine open right now here on my desktop, just opposite from me here, and I've got all the north, northwest, northeast facing slopes highlighted via that terrain analysis tool. And I was spending some time just before we jumped on, just looking at like individual pockets and potential bedding areas, and using also the elevation tool to kind of fine tune my search. Don't tell Porter that I was scouting. I was supposed to be working, but it happens from time to time.
That's work, Trail. Come on. If anything, that's like product research and development.
I walked right into that one, didn't I? Anyway. The response has been good, but like I said, we're trying to get the word out more of what is capable with that tool. I mean, it really is a phenomenal tool, just like you said, to kind of help you fine tune areas. I mean, it's kind of a cheat sheet. I look at it a little bit like when we rolled out filtering 2.0. That filtering 2.0 tool in Insider essentially allowed you to do a ton of research just in a matter of seconds. You could set these parameters based on what you were looking for, and it would yield these results on your screen. And I mean, it was so quick. I mean, in just a few seconds, you could do a massive amount of research. And I kind of look at this as the same way, this analysis tool. I mean, in 5 or 10 seconds, you can, play with the parameters within that tool, and you can really start to see the areas that are the most applicable to you and your season and your hunt. So, the response has been good, but like I said, we need to do, on our part, everybody's part, to kind of get the word out of what this thing is capable of, because it really is an awesome tool.
I agree. I use it. I can't tell you how much I use it. It's, in fact, I just did 2 videos about how I use it for different types of e-scouting plans, and the editor who's working on it is like, "Are you sure you want to tell everybody this?" Well, I think they already know, so I guess I'm going to tell them.
Yeah.
No, and it is so valuable. And we've talked before, in the old days when just 3D mapping was first available, that was, you got so excited. It's like, man, you can just fly over the area and see what it really looks like. And, you can look at that, and then you go to your GPS or your map or whatever it was, and you put the little, you mark a little spot there, and then you transfer it to your GPS and you go out and hike. And it's like now with an Explorer membership gives you access to all of that. So you're able to literally sit down at 3D mapping, find the spots, drop a waypoint, walk outside, turn on your phone, and it's right there in the app, and you can walk right to that. And there's so many more powerful features in there, but just that simplicity of everything in one place to be able to e-scout, scout, navigate, doing all that, and then the features like you guys are talking about, just be able to narrow down that. For me, I don't look at elevation bands necessarily for hunting elk in archery season, but there are a lot of things that, stand out. North faces are everything for me. That's the first thing I look for when I look at 3D mapping is the north faces. And I'm looking for north faces that provide places for elk to bed where they're going to feel safe and it's going to be cooler. So just being able to turn on that aspect and filter out everything that's not a north face, so those north faces all just jump out in bright green at you. I mean, that in itself is, like you said, with filtering 2.0, it just takes the guesswork out. It takes a lot of the legwork out, and it just really helps you see what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Do you guys use 3D a lot? This is going to be a bit of aging myself. I grew up so accustomed to surface maps, topo maps, that I still hardly ever use 3D. And the younger guys in our office are like, well, look at it in 3D. I'm like, why would I do that? I know what it looks like. I wonder if that's just like the old dog's new tricks problem. But you guys use 3D a lot? I mean, Corey, you just said you do. Trail, do you?
Yeah, I use it all the time. I'm like you in that I grew up using the old topo maps, the old USG. I've used those a bunch, and so I would say I most often start out kind of looking at it as a 2D. But then as I start to drill down and kind of, want to explore areas more in depth, I'll click on that 3D and then use the tilt pan feature to kind of patrol, the area in and around, what I'm looking at. I use it a lot for glassing because I want to get an idea of what the terrain may look like from that glassing point. It gives me a good understanding of what I'm able to see. So I would say that's probably the most applicable in a way that I use 3D, but I use 3D a ton. Earlier today, I was also playing around with this, create elevation profile. I don't know if you guys have played with that much, but I was, dropping a waypoint next to a road and then kind of up to a glassing point and then using this create elevation profile tool to really get an idea of what I'm looking at as far as, where I'm starting out, how much elevation I'm going to gain and lose. And it just kind of gives me an understanding like how steep that is, how long it might take me to hike up there. I think that's a cool little tool that I've been using a little bit lately just to kind of help me fine tune, how long it's going to take me to get places. And I mean, all these tools, there's all these little individual tools. I mean, there's the, slope and aspect and, it just makes like a really nice complete package. There's all these little things that you can do to tinker around with. All the layers, you can really start to put together a hunt pretty slick, with all the options that are available to you.
Yeah, so much for the old surface map that was the color. My wife didn't know what color the carpet was on my floor. She thought my carpet was a yellowish brown, which were just BLM surface maps. Are you guys still collectors like I am? I have all my old surface maps, paper maps with all kinds of crazy marks on them and phone numbers and color coding. And it's like, Randy, what the hell are you going to do with these? Jeez. Because along came GoHunt.
Yeah, I still have some. I've got them rolled up. I've got notes on the back of them, and they're rolled up with a rubber band around them in my little equipment closet.
You a map collector, Corey?
I just, funny you ask, about 2 weeks ago, I threw out about 40 maps.
Oh, what?
I kept the good ones.
I don't think we'd be friends anymore.
But yeah, I rely on 3D, man. I'll go to 2D every once in a while, sometimes just to see the drainage name a little better or something like that. But I would say 90% of what I do is in 3D. So being able to have that out in the field would be incredibly helpful.
Well, the reason I'm asking these questions is I think there's as much variability in how people hunt when they're out in the field as there is in how they prepare and research for how they're going to hunt when they get out in the field. I mean, you guys talk about the way you do it. For me, I'd feel lost if I couldn't have this real precise, pattern. and you guys getting all the utility you do out of 3D. I'm going to have to come and watch you guys e-scout a little bit or play with your computer screens as you do it, because it just, I don't know. 3D loads a little slower than 2D, and I'm like the old man in a hurry. So I just, I don't know. I'm sure the audience is like, Newberg, get with the program, man. It's 2022, not 1992. But
it is pretty incredible, isn't it? The amount of technology and the change and just the amount of information that's available to you now, than what used to be. It's incredible. I mean, the fact that I can mention on a podcast that I've got an elk tag in Utah, and then within 5 minutes I've got 10 people reach out and say, "Hey, what tag do you have?" And I can say I've got this tag, and they're giving me information, and and the same thing, I can then take that information and flip on my GoHunt maps, and I can download and look at polygons, and I can look at glassing points and slope and fire history. I mean, it's incredible how far it's come.
Yeah, it is. And I think that's everywhere in our society. Technology has made these kind of differences in how efficient we can be and how much utility we get out of our time. But when it's in the hunting space, the critics are like, damn technology. I wish they would have never invented this, even though we all use it, right? We grumble about how, well, that guy now knows this. Or, until along came a map like this, I used to know that I could sneak around to the backside of that property. No one really knew there was a little corridor BLM land. And it's like, we grumble about technology when someone else uses it to their advantage, but we embrace it when we can use it to our advantage.
That's it. Yeah, it is funny, huh? You use it to your own advantage, but if somebody else does, you're upset about it. But I think it's pretty incredible, and I always go back. I mean, earlier we talked about it, but I always go back to the fact that with all the information, all the technology, all the tools, you still have to go out into the field and make it happen.
Yeah, I think if anything, technology maybe cheats us of that understanding that is still what you got to do. You can have all the technology and utilize it at your fingertips, but if you aren't willing to give the effort and hunt as hard as I know you guys do, and how I think I hunt pretty hard, there's still a correlation. The greatest correlation to your success is how hard you're going to work at it, not what little tools and tidbits you take advantage of. It's still the commitment to your own knowledge set and your commitment to giving it every possible effort while you're out there.
Yep, I couldn't agree more. That's, we've talked before, but you look at success rates at 10, 15%, whatever they are for over-the-counter public land type hunting, and I really think it boils down to that's the percentage of the population that's willing to work hard. And you see it, in business, in a lot of things, that 10 to 15% is that top part of the population that is willing to roll up their sleeves and do whatever it takes to be successful, and not afraid to do the hard stuff, go to the hard areas. And, you can give people all the tools, all the resources, brand new weapons, new boots, backpacks, four-wheel drive truck, whatever it is, and 90% of them are still going to fail just because they aren't willing to do the work. And I think for those who are willing to do the work, these resources are absolutely handy, and it'll shorten the learning curve. Might shorten, the time that it takes to get to that level. But for the other 90% that just, aren't willing to put in the work, these resources aren't going to do anything for them.
Agree. Hey, Trail, before I switch to one more topic, do you mind if we give a plug for your Explorer membership?
Yeah, please do. Yeah, that'd be awesome. Do you want me to do it, or do you want to do it?
We don't ever want people to pay full retail, so don't take this personal. But we use promo codes for everything. So if people want all 50 states for $49, use promo code Elk Talk and you'll get $20 of store credit in the Go Hunt gear shop. So I just feel that, again, it's worth all $49, but if I can give them $20 in your gear shop, I want to do that. So don't hold it against me.
Yeah, we won't. We appreciate it.
Okay.
And yeah, it is great value. I mean, $49, you get $20, $20 back to the gear shop if you use, your code. You get points back on your purchases in the gear shop if you are a member, which is a really cool program. I mean, you're essentially paying, getting money back for shopping in the gear shop and being a member. And then, you also get access to Point Tracker, which helps you kind of keep track of your points as you're applying across the West. So, I mean, for $49 and $20 back in points in the gear shop, I mean, it's a tough deal to pass up.
Yeah. Well, there you have it, folks. Don't pay full retail. Use promo code Elk Talk. And if they use promo code Elk Talk for your university course, how much do they save, Corey?
$20.
$20?
Yeah.
Well, what's it going to take to get you guys to give them 25 or 30?
Are you talking to me or Trail?
I'm both of you. I'm here pitching for the audience, man. I don't really care if you guys gave them $100 to sign up. It really doesn't matter to me. So I'm just putting a little pressure on you guys. It is 4th of July coming up and everything. Maybe you ought to have a holiday sale or something and increase to $20. But all right, I'm sorry. I'm being a tightwad accountant here. But so I'm going to ask both of you guys this question because I'm all over the map on it. But is there one feature in the Go Hunt maps or how you do e-scouting that you use way more than anything else? It sounds like 3D might be the answer to that, but.
Yeah, I'll jump in and then, Corey can chime in as well. I would say there's probably, 2 or 3 tools that I use a lot. 3D is one of them. I use it all the time. Like I said, I typically start 2D, but I use 3D a ton and I'm constantly cruising the landscape in 3D. The other one, we've already talked a little bit about, but I use that terrain analysis tool a lot just to look at slope and aspect and elevation. And, I think Corey said he doesn't maybe use the elevation as much for elk hunting, but I do initially, I'll pull up the unit that I have and I'll use those elevation bands to kind of get an understanding of what the elevation is like. I mean, I could think of tags I've had in New Mexico where, it kind of topped out at like that 12,000 foot and, went down into some low country. And when I'm hunting those in, those elk in September, my anticipation is that they're going to be up where, feed is a little bit better. There's some, some forbs and some grass and it's just going to be kind of that, typically if you top out in your alpines 12,000 feet, and your timber line is, 11.5. I typically am looking at that like maybe 10 to 11,000 foot range and maybe 9,500, but I will throw that layer on just to get a view of the landscape on the areas that I think are most likely to have elk during September. So I do use that quite a bit. And then, I use that little, ground tool quite a bit just to plan, routes and look at my elevation gain, see what it's going to take me to get into some of these areas. So I would say those are probably the 3 I use. And then I guess I would add one more. I use a fire layer a lot, especially for elk hunting, an area that's probably 3 or 4 years post burn. If they've got good water, is like an ice cream shop for elk. So I do use those burn layers quite a bit.
All right, Corey. Trail gave 4. I was asking for 1, but he gave 4. So I'll let you if you want to do 1. If you want to do 1 or you want to do 5, it doesn't really matter to me. But I'm just curious so that the audience knows that all 3 of us have a little bit different hunting style, so we probably use these tools slightly differently.
Totally. No, and I use, filtering 2.0 is one of my favorites. And it's not just for draw hunts. There's a lot of information in there for over-the-counter hunts as well to find things like bull-to-cow ratios and percentage of public land and just really helpful things when I'm first starting. If I say, hey, I want to go hunt Montana this year. I applied, drew the combo. Then I'm going to jump in there and start, dialing it down. From there, once I dial down the area, then I'm going to jump into maps. And first thing I do is just a 3D flyover. I mean, I just say, okay, where's the town? Where is roaded access? Where's the main highway? Get a feel for everything. But I think probably one of the tool I use the most is waypoints. I mark everything with waypoints. I'm putting waypoints for, I'm marking potential wallows and water areas, potential bedding areas, and I color code it based on, one is potential, one is actual verified. So when I get out there, my potentials are all in purple, and then if I verify it, I'll turn them to a different color, and that color is based on, if it's a water source, it's blue. If it's a bedding area, it's green. And so I just, I use color coding for a lot of it. So when you look at my map, there's waypoints all over it. And from a mile high view on the phone, on the mobile app, it gets a little bit clustered. But as you start dialing in, there's so much information that you can have there. And when you start to see those waypoints, especially from an e-scouting perspective of food and water and bedding areas, when you see a bunch of those waypoints clustered together, that becomes my focus area and the area that I hike into, either to scout or to hunt. But yeah, I'm continually in 3D mode on that.
Well, I just learned something there, Corey. I use color coding, but I don't use it in the way you do. I don't have this possible in purple and then, verified in other colors. I just, water's blue, camp is green, camp is like orange. Food is green, glassing point is yellow. But I don't have the idea you do of, potential versus verified. The one tool I do use the most is definitely the elevation bands and the terrain analysis tool, and that's just because I mostly hunt migratory elk, and I know that certain seasons, here's the summer range, here's the winter range, I'm going to focus on bands within the transition range, so that's what I use the most. So now I'm going to switch it to gear. You guys see what other people have in their packs, and then you know what you have in your pack. What is something that you have in your pack that you don't see many other people have in their pack? Or maybe is that proprietary and you don't want to give that out? Because then everyone else will have it in their pack.
Something that I've got in my pack, I would say probably the one thing, I don't know, I like an active hunting style, and I've said it a lot, but I like to, kind of live off my back. And, I had a guy ask me not too long ago, he said, what if you're only hunting, a couple, 2 or 3 miles off the road? I would say even in those cases, there a lot of the time I'll still have, a sleeping bag and a bivvy and a pad in my backpack, because I just prefer, yeah, I do. I just like being, out there, and I don't like traipsing back and forth between like a home base and kind of spiking out. So I live off my back a lot. So I would say if I'm elk hunting with my bow in my hand, there's a 95, 99% chance I've got a sleeping bag, a pad, and a bivvy sack in my pack as well.
Wow. I seldom. I'm trying to remember the last time I went elk hunting with that in my pack. Shows I don't venture very far from camp, I guess. Huh. That's interesting. I would have never. Well, I can't say never, but that's That's just interesting, Trail. So you are like that wandering hunter who, hey, this looks like a good place to lay down for the night. I'll just hang out here rather than hike back to a base camp or something.
Yeah. I can think of a lot of times when I've been at elk hunting where, I've been close in the evening and it just hasn't quite worked out, but, it got dark on me and I was within close range of a herd. And, that herd's kind of still moving a little bit before, they bed down for the night. And at that point, if you're turning around, you're hiking back to camp, to a base camp, you're kind of losing that herd, and you're trying to pick them up again in the morning. Whereas I feel like if I can just lay down, make a quick camp in a bivvy and a sleeping bag, I can be up and on those elk really early in the morning. I'm going to be up and ready and listening for bugles, an hour before light, and kind of moving in the direction that I think I was last on that herd. And for me personally, I mean, everybody kind of does it different, but for me, I've had more success in doing that than I have trying to work back and forth between home base, if you will. And I mean, elk are big; they can cover a ton of country, and I feel like if I can be out there and kind of covering that country and kind of moving in with them, I'm more successful.
Wow, that's a way different style than I hunt. There you go, folks. Chalk that one up. No charge for that advice, but trail kills enough elk that you might want to pay attention to that one. All right, since I'm the moderator, Corey, now I get to ask you, what's in your pack that, if you want to share?
I don't know that there's, I certainly, I mean, if we're planning on staying back in, I'll carry a tent and a sleeping bag. But man, especially here in Idaho, it just seems like when we used to go back in with a sleeping bag, we'd get in there and we'd usually find a reason not to stay the same day that we got back in there, and we'd end up hiking back out. So that extra weight quickly found a place in the truck to stay. I use, I think one of the things that I just wish we could stress enough, especially for newer hunters, is the importance of the wind. Mm-hmm. So those just little wind indicators, wind detectors, just a little thing that's always in my pocket or the belt pouch on my pack. I've always got one in my pocket, one there, and then one in the lid. So I don't ever want to be without a wind detector. So you can buy one for $4 or something. So it's not like it's a expensive deal, but it's a pretty vital part of my elk hunting gear. Gosh, beyond that, I don't know. I'm a minimalist.
You are.
I think water has been a big thing for me lately the last couple of years. Just, I started carrying water a few years ago, which was a huge step up. Now I actually use a bladder and
you went to a bladder?
Carry enough water that, I found a new product too. I actually haven't used it yet, but I'm excited to use it because bladders are a pain. Yeah. Like just getting it out and filling it with water each night. There's a new product though that attaches to an Nalgene bottle, and it's got the hose on it and everything. And Nalgene bottles are a lot easier to fill and to clean, and don't have to worry about them popping. And so I'm excited to try that out. But water's been key for me, and I've taken it a lot more seriously the last 4 or 5 years.
Well, about time. When we were in New Mexico in 2016 and you left camp and it's 90 degrees and you got a little 12-ounce water bottle in your pack, I'm like, this guy is he's camel or something. So about time you saw the light, man. I don't know how you did it, Corey. I mean, we were covering however many miles and it was that hot, and you were living off like 12, 16, 20 ounces of water. It doesn't seem humanly possible.
Yeah, and I used to train myself to not drink water during the day, thinking that's just less weight that I have to carry. I can go shed hunting or hunting and not carry any water. And I think it did damage. I mean, I really do think, my cells don't hydrate the way they should. Because of that, I feel like I need more water now than what I should need. And when I drink it, it just goes straight through me and doesn't seem to be absorbed by my body as well. So if I could go back to the younger me, that would definitely be something to be like, take care of hydration. It's so important for, everything. Just in the field, I can power through cramps and do some of that, but you get a little older and things catch up to you. So it's, I've learned hard way.
See, what's the saying? I might be old, but I'm not stupid. So the older you get, the smarter you get. But Trail, if you're living off your backpack or out of your backpack like that, what are you doing for water? Are you just bringing a big bladder full, or do you have a little mini filtration system?
I've used bladders. I've kind of steered away from them the last few years because I had a hunt a few years ago when I'd filled up my bladder and I had my pack loaded and ready to go, and I got there to the trailhead and the bladder had a leak in it and had leaked down through my pack and just completely soaked my bag and everything in it. So I had to hang all my stuff up to dry and give it a few hours before I could actually get going. So I've kind of tried to steered clear of bladders a little bit, and I've probably gone to just using, hard-sided, hydration, so like a Nalgene or even, just like the big smart water bottles that you buy at a gas station. So I've been using those, but living off my back, I typically just pack these little Aqua Mura drops. So it's just 2 bottles, a part A and a part B. You just get 7 drops of each one per liter, and that's what I use for water.
Wow. You're in Utah. One time we were hunting in Utah, and that's all we had. But unfortunately, the water was very tainted with cattle, whatever is left from cattle. Never again will I drink. I will thirst to death before I'll drink water from what we drank it from. But nobody got sick. Nobody died. So the Aqua Mira tablet or drops must work. So
yeah, I would say if you've got areas like Nevada or Utah, and you may be getting your water from less desirable sources like a cattle pond, a filter is a good idea. So Catadine makes a little Hiker Pro, which is just a quick pump filter, and then in addition to that, some sort of treatment like an Aqua Mira drops or Aqua tabs.
Well, the 3 things that I would have in my pack that most people don't have, one is Benadryl because I'm allergic to elk fur. And that always creates some interesting looks from people when I start popping Benadryl. Zip ties, because I don't know how many things we've fixed or repaired or put back together with zip ties. And then I got rid of all of my Snicker bars. I used to carry like 2 or 3 Snicker bars all, when I left the trailhead. And now, as much as I'm not like a supplement guy or anything, those Mountain Ops, what are they called? Energy bars or something bars?
Protein bars?
Protein bars? They're better than candy bars.
Yeah.
And I don't know. If you would have told me I would become that addicted to them, I think it's borderline an addiction. I eat them even here at the office, which gets expensive. But so those are probably the 3 things that I have in my pack that I don't see in a lot of other packs when we're out there. So
have you tried the frosted? I think it's the cinnamon one. It's of that bar.
No,
that one's tasty.
Oh,
what?
Man,
they got a new one out.
It's not my favorite. Yeah, the caramel conquer or whatever is my favorite, but evidently there's a caramel shortage, so they can't get more of those. And I went through my 4 boxes of those when I got them, and they just came out with the cinnamon swirl, or is that what it is? Cinnamon frosted swirl or something like that. And it's
good. Huh?
It is good. It's like a cinnamon roll that's healthy for you.
Huh. Well, I've tried every type of bar known to man, thinking, well, one of these got to work. And a lot of them, they taste like cardboard or sawdust ground up with a little bit of rabbit turds with maybe some chocolate spread over the top of it. So, and now you guys are all saying, how do you know what rabbit turds taste like, right?
Well, that did cross my mind. Thought it was a very descriptive explanation.
Well, here's the story behind that. When I'm 6 years old, 4 years old, something like that, my mom's brothers were out picking acorns. Well, I don't really know the difference from an acorn that fell off the husk from a rabbit turd. So I'm over there and I'm picking up all these rabbit turds. And they're laughing, telling me, though, oh, yeah, these are just smaller acorns. I ate some of them. Then my mom's like, what's in your pocket? Acorns. Like, these aren't acorns. These are rabbit turds. And then when I told her what happened, she went over there and just beat on her brothers to no end. Boy, she was older than them. She gave them a whooping like you never seen. So, but I'm living.
And we just got a new Randyism.
Yeah.
You don't know the difference between acorns and rabbit turds.
There you go. I didn't at the time. So I guess the point being, rabbit turds can't kill you. I don't know that they help you, but they didn't kill me. So that's why whenever I say something tastes like, doesn't taste that good, I use the term rabbit turds. Most people look at me like, how do you know what rabbit turds taste like? Well, let me tell you. So that has a lot to do with elk hunting, I know. But so what else we got, guys?
Just getting ready for the season. Summer. I'm ready for summer to kind of move on and get into the elk woods. I know I run and shoot every morning. So I run some miles out here to my local trail system, and then I'll run up to we have a really nice little archery range. And I know that a couple mornings ago there was like just the ever so slight twinge of like that fall feeling of air, and I was jonesing. I'm just ready for elk season. I can't hardly concentrate.
When does your elk hunt start, Trail? Is it August 20th or something like that?
Yeah, it starts August 20th and runs through the 16th of September. And then I actually drew a New Mexico elk tag this year as well. So it's a second season New Mexico archery tag. So it picks up the 15th and runs through the 24th of September. So I don't know much. I probably won't be much use the month of September.
Wow. Clean living.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Huh. Well, Corey drew a special archery tag this year. Randy didn't draw a special archery tag this year. I didn't draw a special anything this year. Man. I need to have you guys do my applications for me. Trail, do you guys have an application service?
Yeah, I'll do them for you if you want. You want me to. I need some side hustle.
Nah, there's some things in life I'll let people do for me, but I'd let someone do my taxes, but I'd never let them do my applications for me because that's way more important. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can get thrown in jail for messing up your taxes, but you could miss a hunt by messing up your application. So I trust people to do other stuff, but not my applications. So. Would you guys ever let someone do your application for you?
Same. Not me. No.
I wouldn't. Yeah. Not a. I mean, yeah. I mean, I've got a couple of buddies that that are in as deep as I am in kind of the realm of what it is that we do here, and those guys I might, but. For the most part, I mean, it's interesting. I was thinking as you were talking, I mean, I drew 2 elk tags this year, and then I picked up that Idaho one, which, like I said, I won't use. And I also drew a New Mexico Barbary sheep tag. And, I picked up a second season deer tag in Colorado, for me and my kid. And my kid drew, dedicated hunter deer here in Utah. So, I mean, I've got, piles of tags. I think my wife keeps saying, when do these tags going to quit showing up in the mail? She's probably had her fill. But, I mean, it's interesting. Like if you really go down the rabbit hole and you do your research and kind of plan and prep, I mean, there really is still a ton of opportunities to go hunting.
You know what we need to do for the next podcast topic, Corey?
What's that?
How to convince your wife that those tags you get every 4th or 5th year really are once-in-a-lifetime tags.
They totally are.
Right? I mean, when I first started this multi-state application stuff, I'd tell Kim, oh, this is once in a lifetime. I got to go. I know we're busy. We got a wedding or, this or that, but I got to go. It's once in a lifetime. Well, the next year I had another once in a lifetime. And the next year I had another once in a lifetime. I mean, she's a smart woman in spite of her choice of husbands. Pretty soon she's like, how many lifetime? I mean, cats have 9 lives. You're like on life number 15 here with the amount of tags you say are once in a lifetime. So we need to figure out a better term than once in a lifetime. Oh, wow. It sounds like you got many lifetimes lined up this year, Trail.
Yeah, I've had a pretty good year as far as picking up permits goes. It's that once in a lifetime. I think I actually drew a once in a lifetime tag, the mountain goat tag in Utah. And I think that was the only time that I've actually had the opportunity to use that line, where where I actually could back it up and say, no, this is legitimately once in a lifetime. The others, I think at this point, she knows is not the case.
So what you're saying is I might be too liberal in my use of the term once in a lifetime.
That's it.
When you use it every spring and every fall, it might get carried away.
Well, the one thing I did realize is when you say once in a lifetime, my wife anyhow is like, ooh, this is going to cost him. So the price of what I seem to end up paying for once in a lifetime seems higher than I say, this is a pretty hard tag to draw. So I have throttled back on my use of once in a lifetime anymore. So hopefully the audience has some pointers on that, because I could use some better intel on how I present these rare opportunities where I'm kind of begging. Well, not begging. I know I'm imposing on the family relationship here, but I got to figure out how to do that with some tact that doesn't cost me so much in collateral costs. So, well, with that, I think I've kind of driven us completely in the ditch, guys. It isn't a podcast until Randy gets off on some tangent of marital advice or eating rabbit turds.
Yeah, you better be careful giving marital advice. People are going to say Randy knows about as much about marital advice as he does about acorns.
Yeah, I know. Oh, wow. The other part that comes with age, Corey, is just blunt honesty, where you completely admit how stupid you were. When I was this age, this is how dumb I was. So, oh, well. Well, what do you say we let him go, folks? Let Trail go back to his hiking and archery shooting and e-scouting, and Corey go back to his practicing for the World Outcalling Championships in Park City, Utah. Are you signed up for that, Corey?
I am, and I need to up my practicing. My kiddos are sounding really good, but I've been spending maybe too much time helping them and not enough time myself bugling. So I've got to pick that up. That's only like 3 weeks away.
I know. I'm the MC. So
you are again.
I'm going to heckle you.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
I think you ought to rent your kids out, Corey.
Yeah, Jess won the women's last year, right?
She did, yeah. Yep. No, I'm just waiting for the day when they'll start calling for me, and especially packing for me. I'm putting in my time now for them, but there's a day in the not too distant future that I'm going to be reminding them of the times that I helped them call and called for them and packed for them, and it's I've got some good elk packers lined up.
Well, take advantage of it. What do you got for elk packers, Trail?
I've got 3 boys, so I've got one elk packer that's definitely going to earn his keep this year. He's 17 and he's about 6. Yeah, he's about 6'2" and about 180 pounds, and he hits the gym every day. So he's definitely going to pack some elk for me this year. And then I've got a 12-year-old and then a 9-year-old. But that oldest boy, he's coming right into his own of being able to pack some meat for me.
Well, now there's no way I could talk you into renting llamas. If you got a 17-year-old in that kind of shape, you don't need llamas.
Yep.
That's why when somebody says, I got to go cut firewood or mow the lawn, and I look around, they got a teenager, I'm like, what do you mean you got to do that? That's what you brought. That's their job. Or at least it was when I was a kid. I don't know. Oh, well, better be careful here. Well, I'll be getting into family dynamics now that I've already talked about marriage advice. My wife told me to quit talking about marriage advice on my podcast. So hopefully she doesn't listen to this one. I'll be in the doghouse again. Well, guys, hope you have a great day. Happy 4th of July.
Yeah, likewise.
Yeah. Happy 4th, and a big thank you to all of our servicemen and women who serve to protect and keep our freedoms intact.
Wow. I agree with that, Corey. Not just at this holiday, but at all times. We are grateful. Like I always say, what a country. And I mean that 100%. We are blessed to live here. So
absolutely.
Go enjoy Independence Day. But enjoy it safely and don't burn down the woods like happens in Munn. Do they allow fireworks in Utah and Idaho?
You know, they had banned them like the previous 2 years, but I drove by my local grocery store the other day and saw one of those big pop-up tents with all the fireworks. So I guess they're going to allow them to do a few. My kids think I'm a stick in the mud because I've always said no. I never buy any.
Mm-hmm. Corey, do you guys have them there in Idaho? Are they legal?
They are, yeah. We just, we watch where we live, we've got 3 different big fireworks shows that go on. So we can kind of sit up at our house and kind of look over the valley and take in a couple really good fireworks shows. So we don't ever buy them, we might buy some for the little cousins that come over, some little, the little snakes and little tanks, but nothing big. We live right in the middle of the woods. So, man, one errant spark could change where we live really quickly.
Yeah, which is my point. I've often told my legislators that we need a fireworks tax to pay for the firefighting that we know will be required during fireworks season.
Yeah.
Without fail, there is somebody who's not going to behave themselves. Unfortunately, in Montana right now, it's been a really wet spring, so maybe it'll mitigate that. But anyhow, happy 4th of July. Be safe and have fun. That work?
That seemed like a great ending to me.
Sounds good to me.